on a disk floating through space with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE. Welcome back to the channel that says to stupidity. No, it's fine. You can drink that. There's no poison in it. Honest. Oh, this is just my Fight the Flat Earth mug, which you can get in my Teespring store for a tenner. Anyway, welcome back to another debate. I don't know why I do this. I must hate myself or something. Punishing myself for some sins of the past. But tonight we have with us a flat earther who calls himself Freddie Fastfinger. I've not spoken to this guy before. He did send me a list of things that he would like me to prove, but he's got some points that he would like to talk about. So, Freddie, welcome to the channel. Would you just like to take a few minutes to introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, I'm Freddie Fastfinger. Believe in creationism and religion. I'm not as flat earther as such, but I believe that we do live on a stationary earth that could be observed as level and flat, and I do believe that we have a firmament, so that you could say I'm a flat earther. Obviously, I wanted to really start at the Big Bang, and everything has obviously got intelligent design, and I believe in the Big Bang. I believe in the beginning was the Word, and the Word of God, and the Word is like my voice. It's just, if we look at it as vibration and frequency, we prove the existence of a designer through certain proofs. I'd like to go over some of them proofs, maybe. I haven't got anything written down or anything, so I'm a bit unprepared. So you'll have to do all the work for me. That's okay.
Well, that's how it usually goes, to be honest. Right, so you don't believe that the Big Bang happened?
No.
All right.
I believe it was.
Why is there so much evidence of the Big Bang then?
But there's also a lot of evidence that it's not created by the Big Bang, and
Like what?
obviously the universe isn't 14 billion years old. That's just stupid.
Look, you say obviously, but we can literally measure the age of the universe.
But how can you measure the age of the universe?
Because we can tell how long light's been traveling for. We can tell the rate of expansion. There's lots of things that can tell us how old the universe is. The cosmic microwave background radiation, which is a clear indicator of creation of atoms at a certain point in the past. You can do mathematical models based on the expansion of the universe, and if the universe is expanding, then you can mathematically predict what that came from. And then when you look at the evidence that the mathematical model gives us, it says that there should be something like the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is an indication of the point where quarks and gluons formed protons and neutrons and then gathered electrons, and that created a burst of light. And that's why we can see the cosmic microwave background radiation across the entire universe. There is so much evidence to say that, the fact that the universe is expanding and we can see that, you can mathematically model it backwards, and it shows if something is expanding, then it expanded from something.
And you don't think that was created by the thought of God?
Who knows? Who knows what the Big Bang was created by? There's a few theories as to the what happened before the Big Bang. It's entirely possible that there was no previous era. Assuming this is true, it means that like matter, energy, space, and time all began at that point. There's quantum emergence, which is around the theories around quantum gravity, but we don't know a lot about that yet. Multiverse string theory deals with differences of quantum tunneling and quantum fluctuations. And the current, I think, favorite hypothesis among scientists is the cyclical universe theory, which says that, there was a point where the universe started and now it's expanding, but there will be a point where the universe stops expanding and contracts and goes back to an infinitesimally small singularity that contains all the energy in the universe. And this is just based on empirical evidence of, we can see that the universe is expanding, and when we do mathematical modeling and predictions of where that expansion came from, it says that we should see certain things. No one knows what was before the Big Bang. It's impossible to know what was there before space and time. I used to call myself an atheist, right? But
we do kind of know that God was at the beginning. But if we go back to the maths, where you could use, as I don't know much about it, I'm not like an expert on every single subject, but I know enough in my own mind. Like the golden ratio of 1.618 and all the repeating mathematical patterns through life that is blatantly a design and not a form of coincidence.
You say it's a design, but there is no evidence that things were designed. That's the thing.
Well, if you look at mathematics as a universal language,
which
then
very much is,
you could see it as a language of design and a blueprint
you
of
can
life.
look at it that way, but it's not evidence that there was a physical creator. All the matter in the universe came from the energy that was there in the first place. And it's just the laws of physics to say that the energy in matter, when it's such a temperature, will create matter. The energy will create matter, and then that matter will get bigger and bigger. And we can even model, based on the fact that the expansion of the universe and everything, we can see and we can predict what the ratio of hydrogen to helium in the universe should have been at creation. And it matches what the mathematical predictions say that it should be. So now I used to say that I was an atheist, right? I used to say that I was an atheist, but I think the term atheist is a bit silly, because I can never disprove a God, right? I can never say there is no God 100%. I don't think anyone can ever prove or disprove God. I don't know what started the Big Bang, and neither does anybody else. Could there have been some kind of higher being that started the Big Bang? Possibly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is an intelligent design. Just maybe the process was started. Who knows? But we don't need a creator or an intelligent design for the way that things have evolved and become what they are. It's just how physics works, and gravity causing matter to come together, and it's all just how physics works.
You can't expect the universe to create it itself and then expect
all
of matter create itself.
Here's the thing: the universe wasn't really created. If you look at the Big Bang, what the Big Bang says is that at some point in the past, about 14.7 billion years in the past, the universe was all encompassed into a tiny singularity. All of the energy in the universe was in that tiny singularity. And for some reason, there was a massive period of expansion. And then 180,000 years later, you got atoms being formed. Then maybe 300 million years later, the first stars started to form, and galaxies. And it's all just based on the laws of the universe, it's what would happen. It doesn't need to have been a designer, when that's just kind of how physics works.
Everything in this, everything that we observe is obviously made out of the same materials, the same matter, the same.
That's because
break it all down into atoms. Everything is just energy and consciousness.
Well, I wouldn't say energy and consciousness. Consciousness is something different entirely. But everything is energy. Matter came from energy. Yes, that's what Einstein's equation E equals mc squared is about. Energy equals matter times the speed of light, right? Mass times the speed of light. So when at the beginning of the universe, when it was expanding, all there was all of the energy in the universe, right? Because of the temperatures and the pressures that the universe was at, the matter, that the energy became matter, mostly quarks and gluons. And then as the universe cooled, it allowed those quarks and gluons to form protons and neutrons and electrons. Then as the universe cooled even more, the electrons managed to grab onto the protons and neutrons and form atoms. And that's what we call the recombination event, which is what the cosmic microwave background radiation is. It's a literal fingerprint of the point in the universe's timeline where atoms started to be created, because as an electron grabs onto a nuclei, it emits photons and makes light. So that's why we can see the cosmic microwave background radiation, because there was a particular point in time where atoms were created, and that created this light, which we can see. I mean,
Yeah, but you say it's a fingerprint, but I'd say that's just. I'd just say it's obviously, if everything's made out the same stuff, then obviously, and everything has the same repeating pattern, there's no way it can be just a coincidence.
Why not? When the creation of the universe, well, at the point where atoms were made, there was about I want to say like 98% hydrogen and about 2% helium.
Because the universe couldn't create itself, like I said, and life couldn't create itself.
Why could not a natural phenomenon cause the universe as we know it? Why could that not be the case? If something is expanding, then it might contract, and then that contraction will cause an expansion because of pressure and everything that's there. You know, I don't understand the argument of, well, the universe is here, therefore there must be a creator. Natural processes form things.
I mean, if you take certain types of drugs, you can expand your mind.
You're talking about DMT, right?
Yeah, DMT. But I wanted to bring up.
Do you know what DMT is?
Yeah, I've had DMT, but before I go into that, I wanted to bring up lysergic acid, LSD, and I wanted you to bring up the lady from 1950 on YouTube, if that's okay, and skip to about nearly 2 minutes in when she's getting
link?
high.
Do you have a link to that?
You could just type it in on LSD experiment on lady 1950.
1950s LSD experiment on an artist. That's the only one I see. But if we're talking about things like DMT, right? DMT DMT is something that is created in the human brain.
Chemical. Yeah, it's a chemical you release when you're born and when you die, and it's also known as God molecule. You can go to other dimensions. This isn't the only reality.
I've never heard DMT referred to as the God molecule. That would be the Higgs boson. But DMT used to be referred to as the businessman's high, because in the 80s especially, it was really popular because it's a really fleeting high. It comes and it goes really, really quickly. So the businessman could go and take some DMT on their lunch.
The point is, you could learn stuff that beyond this reality. You can be shown stuff that you didn't even know that.
Yeah. Now, are you being shown stuff, or are you just tripping balls?
Well, of course you're being shown stuff, and I'd like you to play that lady on acid.
At what point? At what timestamp?
Just before 2 minutes, when she just like say 1 minute 58 when she's just started getting high.
Is this the right
Leave
video?
it play.
It's a guy. I don't know if this is the right one.
It should have a lady in it. This is the right one, then.
Oh, right, no, that's the wrong one. Sorry, I've got the right one.
That's the wrong one.
I just needed to type in the word lady next to it as well. But you do realize that drugs alter your brain chemistry, right?
Yeah, but you are chemical and electrical impulse, so it's very important.
Yeah,
You are chemical. You're made out of this. You're made out of this. The key is already in you. Your God is already in you, and you can.
I mean, drugs are, something that just alters your brain
I'm not
chemistry makes
trying
you
to
see
promote
things.
drugs at all.
No, I understand. Although personally, my opinion on drugs is that they should all be legal and just regulated and done in a safe manner. But that's irrelevant to the point. But anyway, this is the woman.
Well, tell me.
Well, I just couldn't. I couldn't possibly tell you. It's here. Can't you feel it? This whole room. This everything is in color, and I can feel the air. I can see it. I can see all the molecules.
She's tripping balls.
I'm part of it.
It's all important. It's all important stuff.
I'm trying.
And I feel sorry for people who've never seen it and never experienced
like you're
it.
released, or you're free, or I don't know how I can tell you.
How do you feel inside?
Inside. I don't have any inside.
Is it all
That's the point. We're all
Right,
one.
yeah. So what I'm seeing there is a lady absolutely tripping balls. And I don't think that's any kind of evidence for God. I think it is someone who's taken some acid and is tripping.
It's something to see, an experience for yourself, which connects you to the universe, to yourself, to nature, to everyone, to God.
Yeah. I don't see how the fact that you can see things when you're on drugs is evidence of God. It doesn't. It's a very large leap to make from.
It opens you up to other dimensions. It opens you up to.
Okay. Who knows what other dimensions there are? There's things that are being explored, but the trips that you have whilst on things like DMT or LSD, acid, whatever, it's not a reflection of your connection to the universe. It's literally your brain having signals that aren't normally there and interpreting them in whatever way your brain is allowing you to. Based on your own person, and you will always have, everyone's going to always have a different trip. They might see similar things, but that's because the chemicals make the brain send out certain electrical and chemical signals that are interpreted in that way. I don't think drugs and what they do is any evidence of God.
You reach different levels. Sometimes you meet demons. Sometimes you create, like, do you know what I mean? Like, you go to different levels.
Yeah, there's a whole thing when what they called when you take DMT, you can apparently see like these fourth dimensional creatures. I don't remember what they're called, but a lot of people kind of have a similar experience. But that's because DMT affects the brain in a certain way.
Yeah, but when I smoked DMT, I seen loads of geometric shapes that I'd never seen before. I was shooting. I seen this beautiful lady. I knew I was attracted to her. She was a bit large. She was just pure energy. She was pure love. She was.
Sounds like you were tripping balls, dude.
No, yeah, but I wasn't. I was shown things.
Or or you were tripping balls.
Yeah,
None of this is evidence that there is a God. It's just evidence that chemicals can make the brain do stupid things.
yeah, but no, because it's all stuff that you see in the universe. It's all the blueprint. Everything you see tripping is the blueprint. Not always, but when you're shown stuff, I can't remember the point I was trying to take that. But it's all a repeat of itself. Do you know what I mean? Everything is connected, and everything is. It's like it's hard to explain unless people have seen it for themselves, I guess.
Again, I mean, the brain is a massively complicated thing. All right, there are trillions of neurons that are all connected to other neurons that all have to work together with electrical and chemical signals being interpreted in your consciousness. Right, any kind of drugs that you take, be it antidepressants, acid, cannabis, LSD, anything, all these drugs, they change the chemical makeup of the brain and make you see different things because there is different chemicals in the brain. DMT, for instance, people think that DMT evolved as a way for, because your brain creates it as you die, right? And that is the reason why a lot of people have kind of near-death experiences, because the DMT is like an evolutionary response to make death easier to cope with, and that's why people have near-death experiences, is because their brain creates DMT as you are dying.
Yeah, exactly. You experience it when you die. Your closest point to God. And the Egyptians knew it, released in your pineal gland. They knew for a long, long time that the powers of drugs.
In ancient Egypt, a lot of people were tripping a lot of the time. It was a pretty horrible place to live, so I imagine that helped them. But none of this is actually evidence for a god. The fact that you see shit when you're on drugs is not evidence for anything.
Yeah, but it's stuff that you didn't even know, so it must be evidence or something.
Well, not really, because you can see different shit when your brain is having different things.
You can see a different perspective of reality. As an example, when I smoked salvia, I seen the world in 2-dimensional. So, like, you learn that there are even other universes. We're not even. Everything is just energy, frequency, vibration. We are God, essentially, in a way.
I mean, it's lovely woo that you're talking about, but I like to talk in empirical evidence, and that's that's why I say I'm agnostic, right? Is because there is no evidence for God, but there's also no evidence that there is no God. And I could never, and I don't think anybody could ever personally disprove the notion of God. What God is, I've no idea. What God's powers are, I've no idea. Does God exist? I've no fucking idea. I don't think so, but I could never prove it. And in the same vein, I don't think you could ever prove that there is a God. Things that I can prove is that the Bible is fundamentally wrong on so many things. That's easy to prove.
Yeah, but of course, if that's been translated, and as soon as it's passed through man, obviously, we're like that game Chinese Whisper. Obviously, things are going to get tainted, but the most important parts to take from it are still there in every religion that you.
Yeah, but right. See, religion is. I think religion's silly. Okay, because I don't think you need religion to have a belief in God. I think religion itself is a form of control. But if you look at what gods are and humankind's kind of advancement of gods, thousands of years ago, people would look up in the sky and they'd see the moon, and they'd go, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to say it's a god, because that gives an explanation to it. You know, it's the moon god. It's creating light. It allows us to see at night. And then during the day, there's the sun god. You know, oh, that's a really bright star. That must be a new god. They don't know what it is. They can't explain it. So they call it a god or something because that allows them to have an explanation of some kind. But now we're in the age where we can literally look at the stars up close, and we can detect what the stars are made of, and we know how they were created. We know what's going on in a star. You know, we know it's not a god. It's a nearly perfect spherical ball of plasma created by having massive nuclear fusion furnace in the middle of it. You know, and that doesn't require a god to have happened.
But you guys have found no other life out there so far. This is the most unique planet on the universe.
The universe is fucking-mongous, right? I mean, trillions of stars in our galaxy alone. And we've only managed to look at a certain amount of exoplanets. We know that around Proxima b, for instance, the closest star to us, we know there is a planet in the habitable zone, which is the point between where it's not too hot and it's not too cold. But Proxima b is a small blue star that's not as hot and bright as our star, which means that the planet is a lot closer to the star, so there's more radiation, so there probably isn't life as we know it on there. That doesn't mean that there isn't life in the universe, or even in the galaxy, but because of the size of the galaxy and the limit of the speed of light, it's going to be really, really hard to detect life. Who knows how they're going to communicate? They might be trying to communicate with us already. Who knows? But we've only been looking at the sky with telescopes and stuff for like 100 and, you know, powerful telescopes, and sending out signals for like 150 years. Apparently I was wrong about Proxima. I thought Proxima b was a small star, Geo. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe Proxima a, because it's a binary star system, right? You got Proxima a, Proxima b, and then Alpha Centauri. But anyway, no, that's irrelevant. But none of this is evidence that there is an actual God. Everything can be explained by natural physical processes. It doesn't require a God to be the case.
No, but it makes us completely unique. And
yeah, we are unique. Of course we are. Everyone's unique.
Most of the Bible, well, not all of, like, there's a lot of the Bible that is real, I would argue.
But a lot of it is complete and utter rubbish.
I would say there's great evidence that
Proxima b is a red dwarf star. My bad, Geo. I got that wrong. Anyway, carry on.
That these I can't even remember what I was saying. It doesn't matter. Anyway. So.
Like, the thing about the Bible is that it was written by people, right? If we look at the New Testament, it's got, 150 authors over, 40 years or something? And then you look at the Old Testament, it's even more authors going back a couple of thousand years before that. So it's written by man, and there's no evidence that it was ever given to man by God. If God turned up in front of me and told me that he's real, then I'd believe it. But I don't have any reason to believe in a God, because there is no evidence of a God. And I definitely don't have to believe what the Bible tells me, because there's so much wrong with the Bible and what it says. If people can find comfort and faith in the Bible, that's great. I'm actually jealous of people's ability to have faith. But when I look at the Bible, I just see a bunch of contradictions and things that are wrong. The Bible says that pi is 3. The Bible says you can have a slave and beat them. The Bible says women aren't allowed to learn. Why would God tell people that?
Well, it might have been helping us to evolve back then. Times change, it might have been our only way of evolving at that time.
I mean, again, religion and God is a subject that I can't really debate as such because I have no evidence either way. All right, I can explain the natural processes of the universe using the laws of physics as we know it. I can mathematically model and predict things based on the physical laws of the universe. And to me, none of that requires a God. So whether there is or isn't a God is actually irrelevant to something like the shape of the Earth, when we can observably see that the Earth isn't flat. Right? What makes you think that the Earth is flat?
Like I said, I know I think it's not stationary. It says I can't exactly remember what it says, but
so you think it's not stationary?
I think it is stationary. Sorry.
Then why can we measure? Why can we literally measure movement of the Earth if it's stationary?
Well, but that you're going to use that whole gyroscope thing. It's not really
just gyroscopes,
not really
but there's so many ways to actually. Well, a fiber optic gyroscope is actually extremely good evidence because there's a constant in the universe, c, the speed of light, and if we know the speed of light, we can base things around that. And the function of a interferometric fiber optic gyroscope, the literal way that it's built, allows it to detect movement and nothing else. It will literally show you, if you put it on something that's moving, it will show you that it's moving. That is the way it is designed to work, because we know how light travels and there's nothing else that can affect it. So you say it's not really good evidence, then why does a interferometric fiber optic gyroscope pick up a 15-degree rotation which happens to match with the movement of all the stars and everything around us? It can't be detecting the stars because it can't detect anything outside of the of the actual gyroscope itself. So if it's detecting motion, that means the thing it's on must be moving. And if you put it on the floor, it detects a 15-degree rotation in 3 axes, not just one, in 3 axes, which indicates that it is on a spherical object that is rotating.
Yeah, but you can't trust light.
Why not?
As you, what?
Why can't we trust light?
Well, how can? Well, because you can get it from all types of sources. I've got light on now. Do you mean?
Do you know how a fiber optic gyroscope actually operates?
Well, I don't need to know how to operate to know that light is an unreliable source.
No, the thing is,
obviously,
the speed of light isn't unreliable, right? We know what the speed of light is: 300,000 kilometers per second, 180,000 miles per second, and based on that knowledge of the speed of light, we can use it to tell us if something is moving or not. I'm going to talk you through the operation of a fiber optic gyroscope so that you understand more what I'm talking about. Can you see the screen right now?
I don't think it's really relevant.
It really is. It really is, because, like I said, if it's detecting a movement in 3 axes, that indicates that it's on a spherical object that is rotating, right? So let me just explain. Can you see the screen? Because I want to just run you through this quickly. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So inside an interferometric fiber optic gyroscope, you have the blue box, right? That fires a beam of light, okay? When it hits that white diagonal line, that's a mirror, right? And I think it's a silver-coated mirror that allows half the light to pass through and reflects half the light, okay? Now, both those beams of light are going to be traveling at the same speed because the speed of light is a constant when you're in a vacuum, right? So that means that if the fiber optic gyroscope is not moving, because the speed of light in a vacuum is constant, both the beams of light will meet back at the same point and it will show up as nothing. You won't get any kind of interference pattern, right? However, if the gyroscope is on something that is moving, what that does is it physically changes the distance of one of the paths because the path is moving relative to the light. Meaning that when the light recombines after it goes back through the mirror, you will see an interference pattern. And that's what you detect. When you stick a fiber optic gyroscope on the ground, on Earth, you get an interference pattern. And it detects that rotation in 3 axes. Your pitch and roll, you could say, all right? And there is no other explanation as to why you would get an interference pattern within the fiber optic gyroscope if it's not on something that is actually moving. Does that make sense?
How do they get light? How do they get light in a vacuum chamber?
Well, that blue box emits a laser. In a fiber optic gyroscope, a ring laser gyroscope, that it is a vacuum. You know, they're self-contained. Well, a fiber optic gyroscope uses fiber optic cables, which light travels inside the tiny glass tubes, and a ring laser gyroscope is within like a little vacuum, but they're under the same principle. You know, light is traveling at a constant speed. No matter what happens, this light that is coming out of that blue box is traveling at a constant speed. So when it splits into 2 paths, if it's not moving, you know that you're going to get no kind of interference pattern because the light will take the same time to travel around these paths because it's been designed for those paths to be the same distance. But if the gyroscope is moving, then you pick up the fact that one side of the light has had to travel further or shorter distance than the other. And that means that when the fields of light come back and interact, you can detect an interference between them because they're no longer in sync. And that will only happen if it's moving. And like I said, it doesn't just detect the rotation in one, like this animation.
Yeah, but
it detects the motion in 3 axes.
Can you actually show any like normal people go into space or anything like that and looking at the
Yeah,
shape
there's a
of
whole
the
bunch
Earth?
of civilians that have been in
At
space.
the end of the day, no way. At the
Yeah,
end of the day,
there's
you look at
a
the
whole lot
photos
of civilians that have been in space, like literally
they could
loads of them.
put, like who?
Let me just get the list up. Someone actually emailed it the other day.
Why didn't Elon Musk go to space instead of sending a car out?
Do you know why he sent the car up?
Well, what's the point?
No, so you don't
He's a
know why
billionaire, isn't he?
you don't know why he sent the car up then.
Well,
Right. The reason he
what's
sent
the
the car
point
up
in
was
sending
because the
the
car
car up?
was a good analog of a payload, right? If he went up, he doesn't weigh as much as the payload, right? But he's rich. He's got a bunch of these cars. He fucking makes them. So if he wanted to simulate,
So he thought, I'll
Yeah.
send the car up instead of myself.
well, he didn't need to go up because he's not analogous to a payload. He doesn't weigh as much as the kind of stuff that we're going to be sending into space. The idea of sending the Tesla into space was to test the ability of his new rockets to get a heavy payload into space and deploy it. That was why he did it. Obviously, it's a bit of a stunt to build reputation for SpaceX and stuff, but there was actually reasons why he chose the Tesla to go in there. It was because it represented what a payload would be that we get into space. So he could test the ability of his rockets to see that it worked the way that it said it did, that the payload could release in space. It was all designed to test the stuff that we're using now. And you know what's happening now? It all worked. He tested it. And now he's working on building a whole bunch of his fucking starships. Because that worked. It was a
Of course
test.
you can send the car to space. So what would be the point?
What do you mean?
Well, in your theory, if you could obviously send, he'd go up there himself. Of course he would. Bill Gates, they'd all nip up there. Wouldn't you
The
want to be
payload
part of
wasn't
that?
designed to come back. The point of the car going into space wasn't to see if we can get people into space. It was
No,
to
but the
see
point-
if the rockets that he was designing were capable of taking a heavy payload into space. That's the literal reason he did it.
How many people have been to space? Like,
About
not many
500.
at all, is it? How many?
About 500.
And you don't think more people would have gone to space in that time?
No, do you know how expensive it is to get people into space?
Well, cheap enough to send cars up there.
That wasn't cheap. That cost a fucking lot of money. But it was a test, right? Now, the reason he did that was because Elon Musk and SpaceX are trying to make space travel cheaper by designing reusable stuff, right? And that was the point of getting the Tesla into space with that particular rocket, was to test if it was capable of doing that. And now that he knows it is, he's able to work on the design of the rocket to make it even better and reusable and economically viable to send people into space. Because at the moment, it's really fucking expensive. If you want to send like a tiny payload, like 80% of a rocket that goes into space is just the fuel to get that tiny 20% actually up there, because it takes a lot of energy and costs a lot of money. So you can't just send people willy-nilly. The Tesla was a test of his design of rocket to see if he could get stuff into space in that way. Yeah. As the anti-Hirenfiso in the chat says, Musk chose to send the car instead of a chunk of concrete as a dummy payload. It was a test to see if they could get it up there. That's why he did it.
I still think he would have gone himself, though, wouldn't he?
But that wasn't designed to carry people. And also,
wouldn't you want
the
to be part
Tesla
of an
car
exclusive
the Tesla car didn't come back, did it? It's still in space now. It wasn't ever that payload wasn't designed to get people up there. That was just a test of if it can carry something that heavy. I mean, I reckon Elon Musk will go into space at some point. I mean, I'd fucking jump at the chance to go into space. But what he's doing is trying to make space travel more viable.
Virgin, they said they were going to put people in space years ago. What have they been doing? They've just been taking everyone's money. They haven't done nothing.
Well, they don't just take people's money. They run a lot of businesses. I mean, at the moment, you've got Virgin Galactic, you've got Blue Origins, Jeff Bezos, you've got SpaceX. You know, there's so many private companies that are now going into space and doing stuff and planning further missions. Just because Virgin haven't done things as fast as they said they would, it doesn't really mean anything. Space tourism is literally a thing that's happening.
They're lying, that's why.
Not really, because think about that from Virgin's point of view, right? They say we're going to send everyone, we're going to start doing suborbital flights and stuff, and then they don't do it. That looks really fucking bad for Virgin. It's not something they would just lie about. They obviously have plans of doing these things, but maybe things take longer than they thought they would. Which is why you do all these tests, which is why you send a fucking Tesla into space.
I remember you watched that rocket go off that time. Can you remember that last stream on the rocket?
Yeah, during my 20-hour stream.
And they changed it to the CGI when it hit the cave, when it hit the...
yeah, because you couldn't see it anymore.
When it hit the firmament. So you
no,
don't
there is
reckon
no
they would have
firmament.
just left the camera on? Of course there is.
No, there is no
You
firmament.
can't get to see.
You absolutely, I can show you evidence that there's space. That's easy.
You can't show me any evidence that there's space.
Yeah, I absolutely can.
What? Like, have you ever sent anything like a weather balloon up yourself? Or?
No, me and Reds are planning something for this year to do on both sides of the world.
Because I would be pretty interested in that sort of evidence.
Well, why haven't you done it then?
Well, expensive. I've looked into it.
Okay, but if you really want to know the truth, wouldn't you do it? What do you mean expensive? You can get a fucking weather balloon off for Amazon for 60 quid.
Well, I don't know, but I've looked at them on YouTube, and you'd never see the curvature.
I mean, I've seen the curvature in loads of them, but whatever.
It's only NASA that can show you this curvature. It's no one else.
No, it's not. I've seen it from lots of people, like Red's Rhetoric. But if you want evidence that there is space, then that's actually pretty easy. Let me just get the right video. Yeah, this is the one. And then we'll talk about why there isn't a firmament. Because that is just one of the most ridiculous concepts I've ever heard of. Okay, this is a video by Red's Rhetoric. This particular launch happened at a time where it was... Let me turn the audio off. So this particular launch happened at a point where it was night just going into day, or day just going into night, and the sun was able to illuminate the gases coming out the back of the rocket, right? Now, space is a vacuum, or a near vacuum, right? Which means that if a rocket was going into space, was transitioning from an atmosphere to space, that means that the gases coming out the back of the rocket would expand. Do you agree with that? The higher it got up,
Yeah.
the closer to a vacuum it got, the more the gases would expand, right? So,
Well, you would, obviously it wouldn't work in space, would it?
well, we'll get to why that's wrong. But okay, so this is the Atlas V lifting off, and as you can see, the gases coming out the back as it starts are just in a straight line, right? But as it goes up higher and higher, the gases start to expand more and more until the gases expand so much that it doesn't look like there's gas coming out of it at all, because it's literally just expanding in all directions straight away. That is empirical evidence that there is not a firmament and that rocket has transitioned into a vacuum. Because if
into a thinner atmosphere.
Yeah, but if there's a firmament, there wouldn't be a thinner atmosphere.
You can literally see it bounce off the firmament, and they have to go into their CGI because
no,
they
you
know
can't
that...
see it bounce off the firmament. This was tracked like literally all the way up, and I've got plenty of videos that show a rocket launch from ground into space. Now, you say there's a firmament, but that presents a problem for you, because if there is a firmament, that means that there would not be a gradient of pressure in our atmosphere. If there was a firmament, the atmosphere would be one density, because one of the definitions of gas pressure is that it has a uniform density. So if we are in a enclosed, pressurized system, then we wouldn't have a gradient.
There's different levels. I can't remember all the levels. It's like a couple of levels.
Yeah.
So it's not
okay,
just,
but why?
The
thing is, why
it's not like
is there?
It's not just like a glass dome, like you think it is. There's different levels of a firmament.
There's different levels of a firmament. So basically, you're saying the firmament is the gradient of pressure. Right, let's define what a firmament is, first of all. Is the firmament a physical barrier that keeps in the atmosphere?
Well, I can't remember exactly what it says in one of the books. I
just need to know is the firmament a physical thing that keeps in the atmosphere? Is it a barrier between that atmosphere and space?
There's an ocean. There's an atmosphere.
There's an ocean where?
In one of the layers of the firmament.
There's an ocean in the sky?
Yeah.
No, there's not. There's no water up there. That's not the reason the sky is blue. Now, again, if you are saying there is a firmament, which is there to keep in the atmosphere, whatever the firmament would be, there would not be a gradient of pressure. And it's not just a gradient as you get up in the sky. Even in the room you are sitting in right now, there is a gradient of pressure between the ground and the ceiling. It's tiny, but that's because gravity is pulling everything down. And it's pulling all the molecules of the atmosphere down, so the molecules stack up on top of each other, but get less and less dense as they go up. because gravity is pulling everything down. So that there is a gradient of pressure, and the fact that there is a gradient disproves the notion of a physical barrier of some kind. It's physically impossible to, unless gravity is real. Let me be clear, right? If gravity is real, then the gradient isn't an issue. But if gravity is real, then the Earth cannot be flat.
Well, gravity is irrelevant anyway. Because
No, it's really
is
not.
Just...
Gravity is
Look,
very important to this entire argument, because gravity
Look,
is what creates the atmospheric gradient. Gravity is what creates the shape of our planet. It's
Do you
very
actually
important.
believe that? Do you believe that story with Newton and the apple and all
No,
that?
that never happened. That's just a tale. But it's an explanation of observations of why things fall. Newton actually based most of his work off of Kepler's laws and stuff. The notion of the apple falling on Newton's head is just like a wives' tale that people explain. That the people say to.
He used to tell that story.
No. Newton never told that story. That's actually false. Newton never told that story. Newton never told people that's how he came up with gravity. Newton actually derived his law of gravity from Kepler's observations and stuff. So the whole story about the apple on the head is just kind of an old wives' tale. It's completely irrelevant because Newton never said that himself. But what Newton did do was make some empirical observations that everything falls with the same acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared, coupled with his with Kepler's observations of the planets and everything. He was able to derive a mathematical law which can describe why things accelerate towards other things. And this mathematical law, G equals G m1 m2 over r squared, literally defines how everything works. You can use that law to calculate the attraction between anything. You can use that law to calculate how much weight something will be able to support. It's actually used all the time in civil engineering to create bridges and stuff, because they have to know what forces things can take. And when you use that equation, you can actually figure out how much weight things will be able to support based on gravitational attraction towards the Earth. It's very, very simple. But no, Newton never really had an apple hit his head. It's kind of a ridiculous, a story that was made up, but it's a good representation of the way that he thought. Newton wasn't completely right about everything. Newton's law describes an instant attraction. So if you took Newton's law literally, which even Newton and his contemporaries didn't, but if you took it literally, it would say that the gravitational force reached out instantaneously across all distances. We know that's not the case, and that's one of the reasons why Newton never really had a theory of gravity. He just had this mathematical law which seemed to work. Einstein came along and explained that there's a lot more behind that attraction than just a physical force that appears to pull things, and explained that it's actually limited by the speed of light, etc. But that's all kind of irrelevant.
So, if you believe things that Einstein and Newton talk about, then obviously, do you believe in what they believed?
I don't believe anything. Here's an important thing about me, and I think most people of science, right? We don't believe in things. I don't hold my position because I believe something. I hold my position because it is the most logical position to hold based on empirical evidence. I don't need to have a belief because I can back up everything I say with facts. That doesn't require belief.
Yeah, but thinking life created itself is just a belief.
No, it's not, because abiogenesis is actually pretty well understood.
Is it the?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of science around it and research around it, but abiogenesis and the creation of RNA and phosphorus, helping bind DNA strands together and everything, it's all quite easily explainable.
RNA and DNA is far too complicated to make itself.
Not really.
It's impossible.
Molecules will naturally seek a an equilibrium. And if that means matching with other molecules to make themselves more stable, that's what they're going to do. And when certain molecules started gathering together to make themselves more stable, RNA was created. I mean, there's a lot more to it. I'm not doing abiogenesis any favors there, but the actual process of life being created isn't some kind of crazy mystery. We actually have a pretty good idea how it started.
So, do you honestly believe that, like, you came from a single-cell organism?
I don't.
And a fish
Like I said, I
and-
don't. Like I said, I don't believe. I hold the position because it's the most logical position to hold. There is abundance of evidence that evolution is a fact. We really don't need to argue about evolution when so much evidence around evolution exists.
We're so different to chimpanzees, and you're going to say that we share.
Well, you say we're so different. We share like 80% of our DNA with grass.
Exactly. This is what you believe.
No, I don't believe that. That's a fact. I don't need to believe it. You keep saying I believe, but I don't. I know for a fact because we can see the DNA of grass is in a lot of ways similar to the DNA of us. There is similar things, similar strands.
Will humans eventually evolve back into grassland, or
who knows? Evolution is a progression of random mutations that beneficial ones stick around and help the species evolve. Who knows what humanity will evolve into? I don't think there's a mathematical model that can really predict what humans will become.
You can't believe all of that, seriously.
No, I don't believe. I have evidence that it's fact. You keep saying I believe, but I don't believe. I don't have faith. It's impossible for me to have faith because I base my position on empirical evidence.
No, but just through logic and reasoning, you can see, you can use your own mind and work out that it can't be true.
No, with logic and reason, I can use my mind and evidence to show that it is empirically true. Have you ever read, this is probably a silly question, but have you ever read The Voyage of the Beagle?
No.
Right. Before you argue with anyone about evolution, I would highly recommend that you read that you read The Voyage of the Beagle, which is all about Darwin's trip to the Galapagos Islands and stuff, and his observations and how he came up with the theory of evolution. And it's actually very important for reading. If you want to talk about evolution, then it's very important that you look at that.
You're going to say about the birds and all and stuff like that, but they still stayed the same kind, if you will. They stayed the same species. It doesn't matter.
Define kind and species, please.
Well, they stayed the same. They didn't evolve past themselves at all.
But they were different to previous generations, and they were different between islands. When certain islands had an insect on that burrowed into the ground, and the birds that were on that island developed longer beaks so that they could reach the insects. Whereas the island that didn't have these insects in the tunnels, the birds didn't have those longer beaks because they didn't need them. It wasn't an advantage for the species to have that.
That's just adaptation, obviously.
Which is evolution.
It's not really, though, is it?
But
you
it
guys
is.
keep on saying.
Random mutations which are beneficial and then carry on is literally what evolution is. Like, Right, okay, let's look at a point in human evolution, right? Where humans needed to learn to think. There was a period where we were still in Africa, mostly, and it was an incredible drought, and a lot of humans were dying, right? The humans that survived were the ones that were able to think ahead, and do things like put water in a hollow egg and bury it so they knew they'd come back to it later. And to develop that kind of thinking, the ones that actually managed to do that were the ones that carried on that trait of having that kind of ability to think ahead. And that's and they're the ones that then evolved more into humans. And that's an example of how a trait can carry over to the next generation and be beneficial. You know, it's because they were able to do a certain thing that their genetics were carried on to the next, you know, line of their progeny. The ones that weren't able to think ahead, that hadn't developed that mutation in their brain that allowed them to do that, were the ones that ended up dying out.
But they still stayed people. They didn't evolve.
Yeah, but they evolved. The brains evolved in a particular way because the genetics that carried on were the genetics that allowed the people to think in a certain way that allowed them to survive. So there is a change. You know, they were different to the ones before because they could think in a certain way because of the genetic mutation that allowed their brain to do that. And it's the same with evolution all over. I mean, that's a very kind of localized kind of description of evolution, but it's a distribution of genes that changes over time. If there is the mutations are just something that happens, right? But if that mutation turns out to be beneficial, then the genes are going to carry over.
Yeah, but all it did was learn from its mistake. It's like saying when you're told as a child to put your head on the stove because it'll burn, and you do it the once. It's just the same thing. You've learned from your
Yeah, but the important
mistakes.
thing was that it was the ones with the brains that were large enough to be able to give them that abstract thinking that allowed them to survive. So if there's a mutation that's beneficial, it's going to help the species continue.
They were still all human though. They just passed on. Some hid the secret, some passed on. That's the difference. They stayed human.
Yeah, they may have. Well, they weren't always human. Before that, they were Homo erectus that didn't have the ability to do that. That's what evolution
They
is.
were still human as well.
Right, let's take this in a different direction, okay? Because you're not really understanding what evolution is, so it's very hard to have a discussion about it, right? But what if you are saying that the Earth is flat? There has to be some kind of evidence that you can point me to, right? Other than just the Bible and beliefs, there has to be some kind of physical, empirical evidence that you can tell me about that would demonstrate that the Earth is flat.
Oh yeah.
Like what?
Most land mass is flat. The sea's level. Like, doesn't matter how high you go.
Wait. Did you just say the sea is level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know
what level means?
Well, it just means. Well,
okay, so here is the literal definition of the adjective of level from the dictionary, okay? Merriam-Webster dictionary defines level, adjective, as in a physical description, as conforming to the curvature of the liquid parts of Earth's surface. Level literally means the curve of the Earth. And I'm not making that up, that's literally in the dictionary.
Yeah, but I would say that, wouldn't there? There's people brainwashing everyone.
Oh, right. So the dictionary is brainwashing. No, it's just the description of the word. An adjective is a physical description of a thing, all right? So level just means conforming to the curvature of the liquid parts of Earth's surface. And when you say land masses are flat, right?
It doesn't matter. I've been on planes. You never see the water.
You're not gonna see it when. All right. Look at this globe in my hand, right? If you're on a plane, you're closer than my finger can actually touch this globe. You're barely, you're not up here. You're right on the fucking surface, pretty much. All right. Planes don't go that high in relation to the size of the Earth. On most occasions, you aren't going to see a curve. Okay, it's as simple as that. But you're saying that land is flat, right? What does that mean?
Well, you can look at like the salt flats.
I've actually shown curvature on the salt flats before. Let me. I've got one picture I want to ask you about. Then, if Earth is so flat, you just bear with me for one sec while I get it. I think Miles, you're in the chat, aren't you? So thanks to you for this. So this is from another YouTuber called Miles Davis, who actually lives just very close to me in Fife. Okay, and this is a still from a video he did from the top of I can't remember what it's called. It's a big hill up here. There's a sign that says it's 210 meters above sea level. Okay. The red line is the top of the pillars of the New Forth Bridge, right? And that is also the top of those pillars are also 210 meters in height. Those hills in the background, their elevation above sea level is over 500 meters, so more than twice the height of this red line and the position that he is at. Now, because he is at the same height as the top of those pillars, it gives you an eye level, right, that you're looking on, which means that nothing should ever drop below that eye level if the Earth is flat. Yet the hills that are twice the height in elevation are actually below that red line. How is that possible if the Earth is flat?
Well, of course, you can have hills and mountains and stuff. So, but all of them pillars, they haven't taken into consideration a curve for the Earth, and they're all the same size. It makes a straight line.
Yeah, well, no, you've missed the point entirely.
And the mountains are irrelevant.
No, they're not irrelevant because you've missed the point entirely. We're talking about elevation above sea level here, okay? You're not going to see a left-right curve in that field of view. It's too small.
Have they took into consideration? Have they cut down the poles at all? Were they all bought at a standard size? Wherever you buy them from.
They didn't buy the pillars. They made those. Right. No, Michael Hemming, not perspective. It doesn't work that way. So, right. The main point of this picture, right, is that the camera is at 210 meters. The top of those pillars is also at 210 meters. That gives you an eye level. That gives you a plane that you're looking across that is 210 meters. Okay. So why are those hills that are wait? Why are those hills that are 500 meters in elevation below the 210 meter eye level?
And even if you are going to use hills as an example, you can see they're nearly level anyway.
Yeah,
there's only a couple of.
Again, those hills are twice the height of the pillars. Those hills are 500 meters above sea level, and the pillars are only 210 meters above sea level. So if the hills are higher, why are they below your eye level?
Yeah, but why are they all 210 meters and they're still level? That's the important part. No matter about the mountain.
No, you're missing the point. You're not going to see any left to right curvature in a field of view that small. There is 0.0012 degrees every mile. All right? So you're not going to see that. If you take a pencil and you put it at the other side of your room and then tilt it 0.0012 degrees, are you going to fucking notice? No, you're not. The amount of curvature along those pillars is so minimal that it wouldn't need to be taken into account. But the important thing here is that the hills in the background, which are several miles away, are below the eye level of 210 meters, when their elevation is actually more than twice your eye level. Why is that?
It's just your perspective and your elevation.
No, perspective wouldn't make something drop below eye level. Horizontal lines horizontal lines don't intersect. That's kind of the point of horizontal lines.
If you go towards something, it becomes bigger. If you move away from it, it becomes smaller. Anytime you do anything, you change.
If you've got an eye level though, right, that gives you a base, right? So that eye level is, it's the same all along, which means that if the Earth was flat, that line should be about halfway up those mountains in the background. If the Earth is flat, then there is no reason it would be below the eye level, because perspective wouldn't make something dip below your eye level. That's not how perspective works. Perspective is all about angular size and stuff. Alpha equals 2 times the arctan of g over 2r, right? So there is a large distance between the top of those towers and those hills. The top of the hills is 500 meters plus above sea level, yet it appears below eye level. Perspective can't cause that. Perspective could cause things to appear to shrink in angular size, but they don't change the physical position of things.
You say perspective doesn't do that, but then you could claim perspective made the Chicago, like,
No, that's refraction. That's not perspective. That's refraction. They're different.
Well, it's still the same point.
No, it's not. Perspective and refraction are not the same. Right?
Well, of course it is, because it's all to do with
perspective and refraction are no, that's nothing to do with perspective.
Yeah, I understand.
Perspective and refraction are very different things.
I understand it's different, but you're still going to get different angles of light, different. Just from moving the camera, you change the perspective by loads.
Yeah, but this camera
I think it's an unreliable experiment because, each one of them pillars is 200 meters high, like you said, and that is straight. So all that proves is no one takes account for curvature, except
there is many bridges that actually have had to take curvature into account. But like I said, the curvature in that left to right that you are seeing, that curvature there, the left to right you are seeing is the curvature is, we don't live on a cylinder, so you're not going to see left to right curvature like you will see the effects of curvature in front of you. Because, like I said, we don't live on a cylinder.
You'd be able to see it from all angles.
No, you
wouldn't. No matter where you look.
No, you wouldn't. The Earth is tilting, is curving away from you in every direction, right? So from whichever way you are facing, if you look forward, the Earth is curving away from you that way. If you look to the left, the Earth is curving away from you that way. It's not a left to right curve in front of you because we don't live on a cylinder. And also the Earth is far too fucking big to see that. Okay? The amount of Earth curve along that bridge is so fucking minute that they didn't need to take it into account.
Have you got an example where they're taken into an account?
Let me go into my folder, one sec. Okay, so there it is, the Van Narrows Bridge. Let me just get this up. Come on. Sorry, one sec. Save image. Sorry, my computer's being a bit slow. I don't know why. Right, so this is the bridge. It's a suspension bridge called the Van Narrows Bridge. Okay, to account for the curvature of the Earth, the towers of this bridge are 1 5/8 inches further apart at their tops than at their bases. That's like just over 4 centimeters. So they had to take the curvature of the Earth into account when making that bridge.
And it was only 4 centimeters after all of that.
Yeah,
length.
because the Earth's fucking massive. Like I said, 0.0012 degrees every mile.
No, so every mile you get 1.2 degrees,
No,
yeah?
0.0012 degrees. So less than 1/100th of a degree.
And how big's that bridge, did you say?
I'm not sure of the exact size of the bridge, but I think it's about 2 miles long. I'm not sure, bear with me. Yeah, I think it's just over a mile and a half long, the actual bridge. But they had to. Right, let me get the actual thing up here. So if the radius of the Earth is 4,000 miles, the ground length for the bridge is 4,260 feet. The height of the towers is 693 feet. You do angle over LR equals 0.0002, which gives you the amount of degrees per mile. And then you can do some basic maths to figure out, based over that distance of the bridge, the increase in distance between the top and the bottom, which turns out to be 1.67738 inches, based on the distance of that bridge and the diameter of the Earth. So they absolutely had to take the curvature of the Earth into account when making this bridge, and they did so by 1.6777 inches, because that is the calculation that you would get based on that distance and the curvature of the Earth. So why did they take the curvature of the Earth into account when making that bridge if the Earth isn't curved?
Well, I don't think they probably did. I think they just
so it's
thought.
just lying. You're saying they're just lying. I mean,
who's saying that who actually is saying that?
The actual engineering manuals from the people that built the bridge say that. That's where they got this information from.
And who was building this bridge?
I don't know the exact name of the people who built it, but it's, you know, whoever built the bridge. But they had to take into account the curvature of the Earth when building it, and they
I can't see that. Well, you don't have to take in consideration for anything else.
But you do. That's the thing. Do you know geodesic surveyors?
I've never heard of.
Do you know what a geodesic surveyor is?
No.
A geodesic surveyor is somebody who literally measures the ground to see when they're building, if they need to take curvature into account, right? And they have to calculate a thing called spherical excess, which is literally how much the Earth curves based on a distance, and if they need to take that into account. This is why when LIGO was constructed, the humongous interferometric fiber optic thing in I've forgotten where it is. I want to say Switzerland. That might be wrong. But anyway, when they built LIGO, the end of the 1 kilometer arms were actually higher above the ground. Were above the ground than when they started. So they had to like put concrete mounds underneath it so that the lasers inside could actually be completely flat. So you do have to take the curvature of the Earth into account when you're building something that is big enough to take it into account.
So what about when they're building roads or train tracks?
Well, land has contours, right? Also, train tracks actually bend by a certain amount as well. They're literally designed to, to be able to be slightly flexible. That's why train tracks can go up hills and shit,
Yeah, but all of that just proves that the Earth is flat anyway.
In what way does land having contours prove the Earth is flat?
How if a train's going to be travelling uphill around the curve?
No. You don't go uphill around a curve.
You're not.
If you're going north, you're not going uphill. That's not how it works.
Yeah, you said you're on a globe. You're constantly going forward, so you're constantly going over a curve.
No, you're always at the top. You're not going over a curve. You are at the top of the Earth. No matter where you are, relative to you, you're at the top of the ball. Okay? So
so it should obviously curve, shouldn't it? And they should have to take into consideration it curving, but they don't.
Except
they don't need to.
They don't need to take. Train tracks are on land. Yes, land has contours, hills and stuff. Trains go up and down hills. They're literally designed to do that. So if
but that's what I was saying
why
about.
would that be an issue?
Well, that's what I was saying about the land being level, about land being flat and water being level.
But land isn't flat.
How isn't it?
Because hills. The mountains.
Yeah, but,
Have you been to
yeah, but
Scotland?
of course you can
Dude, in
move.
Scotland, if I'm going somewhere, I'm going up a hill. If I'm coming back, I'm still going up a fucking hill somehow. The land is not flat. It's as simple as that. And the definition of level literally means the curve of the earth. So if you say water is level, you're absolutely fucking right. Because level is the curve of the earth.
You can easily get boats back into perspective on
Wrong.
water.
Very, very wrong. Do you want me to prove that wrong right now? I assume you didn't mean to say the word perspective there. You actually meant to...
Into your view, sorry.
Yeah.
I back into your view, sorry.
Let me just get the video. Oh, God, where's it gone? Oh, let me just... There's the cameraman. I've lost the bloody video. Ah, there we go. That's the one I want. So you are saying that if something goes over a curve, appears to go over the curve of the Earth at sea, you can zoom in on it and bring it back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, easy.
Right, okay. I'm just going to prove that wrong now. If you give me 1 sec to load this in. Right. Okay, so this is another YouTuber I know personally called Dazza the Cameraman. And in this video, he is using a Nikon P1000 with a 125 times optical zoom. Now, I'm going to speed it up just so I can talk through it. What he's doing is he's looking at these 3 boats in the distance, okay? You've got one in the middle and one either side. The one in the middle is... Oh, let me see if we actually got the distances. I can't remember the distances, but the distances are actually irrelevant to this, okay? Because what he does is he zooms in a little bit, right? And you can see that the ship on the left appears to have gone over the curve a little bit, right? You agree with that?
Well, it hasn't really, is it? It's still there.
But you're saying it appears to have gone over the curve, right? The bottom,
that one.
The bottom of it's missing, right? Okay. So what he did just then was he took a screenshot when he's still zoomed out, okay? And then he zoomed in. Go on, Dazza, zoom in. And put the screenshot next to the zoomed in part. And what you notice is that the screenshot whilst zoomed out actually shows the same amount of the ship when zoomed in, proving conclusively that zooming in on something does not bring it back above the horizon once it has gone below. What you've seen is videos that have ships of a pretty small angular size in very bad conditions, making it too hard for the camera to see because the angular size is too small for the actual lens to pick it up, or to do the Rayleigh criteria and stuff. Then as you zoom in, the camera will appear to come back over the curve because it is increasing the angular resolution of the object by zooming in, allowing the optical sensors to pick it up. But what this shows is that zooming in on something that has apparently gone over the curve does not ever bring it back into view. Because if it did, you would be able to see more of the boat in the top bit than the bottom bit.
But why can't you? Why doesn't it come back into full view then? If refraction works,
because the conditions at this time, there wasn't much of a refractive index. Refraction is dependent on things like temperature and humidity, etc. I mean, there may be some refraction going on here. That boat may be even further away than it appears to be. But the act of zooming in will not increase the amount of the boat that is available. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but you still see the boat. It still comes back over the curve.
But it hasn't, has it? I've literally just showed you something where it didn't come back over the curve. See, right?
If
Zoomed
you
out.
jumped in a boat, if you jumped in a boat from the beach, right,
Yeah.
and then travelled out to sea, you'd see the land for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah, you realise that I was a sailor. I was in the Navy for many years.
So you know you can see the land for miles and miles.
I also know that it disappears at a certain point, which wouldn't happen if the Earth was flat.
Well, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you can't see it anymore, obviously.
And then it disappears. But then if you're looking at buildings on the
It
shore,
just
you
goes
can still
beyond
see the
the-
top of the buildings, but you can't see the shore. And then as you go out further, the buildings disappear. When I was on HMS Westminster, which left Rosyth Dockyard in 2006, I want to say, and it actually went under these bridges that I showed you earlier. Get back up.
And if I bring up about the water level being level, you're just going to say, oh, because it curves in front of you. But
Yeah,
you
but I
can't,
mean,
you can't,
the
you
definition of
can't
water level is like that. Okay,
well,
so
you can see, if you do, you can see us level.
right. When I was going out to sea on HMS Westminster, the dock in Rosyth is just off to the bottom right of this photo, right? And so we had to sail under these bridges, okay? And as we sailed out on the flerf off to the left, right, the land disappeared first. But what I could still see was the tops of these towers for a little bit until they then disappeared. And those towers are not are not bigger than the land. So the land isn't going to disappear and the towers still be there if it's to do with angular resolution. That happened because there was a physical curve in the way. And let's go back to this. Your claim is that zooming in on something will bring it back above the horizon. But that doesn't happen in this picture. Because as you can see, the screenshot taken whilst it's zoomed out matches the amount available to see when it's zoomed in. Showing you that there is no way of zooming something back into view other than it's increasing its angular resolution enough to be able to be seen.
But I bet there's other videos on YouTube where you could see the video coming, the boat coming back in.
There is a lot of videos on
You
YouTube
can't see it.
there's a lot of videos on YouTube that people say that's what's happening, but that's all to do with angular resolution. These tankers are big enough that it allowed this observation to be taken. If you're looking at a fucking little sailboat disappearing out, the angular resolution of that sailboat is going to get so small that your eyes and the optical sensors on your camera are unable to see it. But if you zoom in with the camera, it increases the angular size, meaning that it's visible again. But that's why the cameraman used these tankers, because they're so big that angular resolution wasn't an issue.
And if the cameraman as well raised his elevation a little bit,
He didn't.
obviously
I mean, I've just
be able to bring it.
he'd
Be able to bring it into view even more. So
I don't know if he shows it, but he's actually got it on a tripod, right? So he doesn't raise the distance of it. All he does is zoom in. I mean, you can watch the video and yourself and see. He does not raise the camera. He simply zooms in. It's on a tripod, so he zooms in, takes a screenshot, and then zooms in even more and shows that zooming in did not bring it back above the horizon.
no, but if he moved his camera up,
but he didn't.
It would bring it back.
Do you have listening comprehension issues? I just said he was on a tripod.
Yeah, but he was level. He could only see things level to him.
What are you on about? He could see these. I mean,
Well,
are you denying the physical observations that are in front of you?
Well, no, but if he was stood higher, he'd be able to see at an angle, so
But,
it'd come
well,
fully back into view.
That's
If it was hid over the curve, he'd
but
never be able to
what you're saying
in.
is, but he didn't move the camera. The camera was on a tripod. It stayed the same position. All he did was zoom in. And also, raising elevation would not bring things back into view on a flat Earth.
Why not?
Because that only happens on a globe, because of the shape of a globe. Ooh, right, let's get rid of that now.
Well, no, because you can only see so far.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but raising your elevation would not increase the amount that you can see if the Earth was flat. Because it would be continuously going out. The only way that increasing your elevation allows you to see further is if you're on a ball, looking over the curve more. It's
But the only people
simple
things.
things.
People who are taller now.
And I mean,
No...
things like this, right? If the Earth was flat, then the horizon would kind of rise to eye level, but the horizon doesn't rise to eye level ever.
But where's the curve in that picture?
Left to right, you're probably not going to see it still because 0.00012 degrees per mile, remember?
Yeah, but
nothing.
exactly. You can't see it. You never can see it. It's all made up.
Again, go and put your pencil at the other side of your room, tilt it 1/100th of a degree, and tell me if you can see the difference. You wouldn't be able to.
So why can't no one see the curve though?
But they can, all the time. I mean, we've got millions of pictures from space, billions even.
Show me some that haven't been tampered with in any way. Or
Sure.
Show me.
You not heard of
I wouldn't mind
Blue Marble from
I wouldn't mind seeing
1972?
a homemade video of someone going up to space.
Well,
Like,
go on then, make it.
Weather balloon or something. Yeah.
All right, if you'd like to see that, then it's your responsibility to do it.
Well, I've seen it on the internet, and you never see.
Oh, you've seen it
curve.
on the internet. Brilliant. How about you actually do it yourself? Because there is many videos on the internet that also show you curve from weather balloons and stuff that have gone up. These things aren't hard to get.
Well, I've never seen one, and I've looked.
You haven't looked very hard. I mean, that's not doctored.
Yeah, I've always
that is literally just. This was taken with a Hasselblad camera with a 80mm lens. There's no there's nothing. There's no issues with that at all. It wasn't doctored. There wasn't CGI in 1972. The pinnacle computer graphics in 1972 was Pong.
You can't say you believe in that, surely.
I don't believe in it. I understand the empirical evidence.
Let's compare that picture with some others then, and we'll see if they look the same.
Well, you do realize that different cameras have different imaging sensors, right?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's the same object.
Yeah, but if you have different imaging sensors that take pictures in different ways, you're going to get different colors and stuff, right?
Yeah, but if I take a picture of myself and then take another picture of myself and then it's never going to change. It's always going to look like me. It's never gonna.
But the colors may change if you take with a different camera.
Yeah, but the colors are irrelevant. Let's look at everything. The shape.
I mean, the shape's always going to be like that. I don't know what your issue here is.
Well, look at it.
Yeah, it's taken with a physical camera.
I can't believe that. I can't.
Well, that's your issue. I don't give a fuck about your own incredulity. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but look at it.
This was an actual photo that was then developed on actual film in an actual darkroom.
Who took this photo? NASA.
Eugene Cernan.
Wait for NASA.
Well, of course he did. He was on the way to the fucking moon.
You can't. They're photoshopping everything.
No, they're not. That's not Photoshop. That's from 1972. There was no Photoshop in 1972.
No, but they could do whatever they wanted.
No, they couldn't. The pinnacle of computer graphics in 1972 was Pong. There wasn't any photo editing technology in 1972.
Do you actually believe in that picture? Yeah. Well, you just said you did. Yeah. That's nuts.
Well, you need. you need to provide me with some evidence that it's fake, because to me it looks like the Earth.
Well, like I said, we should to provide evidence. Really, we should be comparing it to other pictures of Earth, shouldn't we?
Yeah, there's plenty of pictures of Earth, and they all kind of show the same thing. I don't know what your issue is.
Well, I've looked at them, and none of them look real.
And what makes you such an expert on things being real or not?
Well, you can see it.
What can you see? Looks real to me. Tell you what, we're going to test whether you have the ability to say if something looks real or not. Okay? Right.
Well,
So, I've got
I
little...
think that's computer
Well,
generated.
again, I
so-
don't really care what you think. I care about empirical evidence. So, let's do this. Bear with me 1 second. Let me just check I've got the right screen up. Right, can you see that on screen there now? Oh no, I don't think I'm showing the right thing. Desktop capture. Oh, that's over there. What is desktop capture? I'm confused. No, that's not the right one. Why is that not working? All right, sorry, just bear me 1 sec. I'll get the right screen up. All right, let me just get the actual website up then. Right, because if you are such an expert that you're able to just say, well, that looks fake to me, you need to be able to prove to me that you're actually able to make that judgment, right? So, fake or photo? Go away. Real or fake?
Fake.
Real or fake?
Real.
Real or fake?
Fake.
Oh, next one. Real or fake?
Real.
Real or fake?
Real.
Real or fake?
Fake.
Real or fake?
Fake.
Real or fake?
Real.
3 more. Real or fake?
Real.
Real or fake?
Real.
Come on. And real or fake?
Real.
Let's see how you did. Ooh, only 27% right. So whenever you say that doesn't look real to me, I'm going to just ignore you because you obviously aren't able to tell if things are real or not. Fair enough?
Yeah, but I'm only on a little screen, so it's a bit
Doesn't
hard
matter.
to see.
You were looking at this on a little screen and you were able to declare that it was fake. So please don't make a claim of something is fake if you don't have the ability to actually discern if something is fake or not. I think that's a little bit disingenuous.
Yeah, I was a bit shocked. I thought I would have done better than that, to be fair.
Exactly. Maybe you should rethink some of the things that you're saying, because clearly none of it was fake. And if you're unable to determine if something is real or fake, then you don't have the judgment to look at something and say, well, that's fake. Okay? The fact that we have so many pictures of Earth from space and they all show the same thing, The fact that we can use something like the Himawari to literally watch the bushfires in Australia at the moment, which is fucking horrible, by the way. But, you know, these things are in space, and they actually allow us to see things quite a lot. Now, if we're talking about Himawari, for instance, they used Himawari to actually detect a bushfire in Mongolia that was heading towards a village. There was no other way they could have known about this, and they were able to save people's lives and get them out of that village and stuff because Himawari was able to see these fucking bushfires before anybody else. So it's real-time data from space. There is satellites in space. Space is a thing. And didn't you say that rockets don't work in space?
Well, of course they don't.
Do you want to explain to me why you think rockets don't work in space?
Well, they've got no none of fuel to keep it ignited. There's no air to.
That doesn't matter. Right. Okay. So first off, the fuel literally contains liquid oxygen, so you can still have combustion. And also, rockets don't push off of the air. That's not how they create thrust.
No, but as soon as it hits that so-called vacuum of space, then obviously it would. Any oxygen in the tank would just get sucked straight out of it. It wouldn't be
No,
able
because
to...
there is literally a tank of liquid oxygen that is injected into the fuel at the same time, meaning that it can combust. It's not going to just suck that out of the tank because that's all part of the fuel system. So rockets work in space because of Newton's laws of motion. It's as simple as that. If there is a force acting in one way, something goes the other way. I.e., if they're shooting fucking fuel and flames at the back of the rocket will go in the opposite direction. Can I be blunt with you for a minute, right? All of the things you're saying to me are because of your ignorance of how things actually work. I'm not trying to sound nasty, but you have no idea about science. You don't understand the basic mechanics of how our universe works. These are very important things if you intend to try and debunk something like the Earth being a globe, because it's so easy to prove to yourself that the Earth is a globe with any amount of observations. And there is no evidence that ever suggests that the Earth is flat, because any evidence that flat earthers think they have is simply them misunderstanding the heliocentric model and what it represents. You don't understand things like gravity. You don't understand angles and distance and perspective. You can't tell if things are real or fake. These are things that are very important to you if you want to try and debunk the whole of science.
Yeah, but science kind of like, I'm not scared of science. Eventually science will find out the truth. So
Yeah, and the science is working very hard on things like that right now. Like, we're trying to get a unified theory of gravity, which is something that has evaded us for a long time. But science is never going to find out the Earth is flat, because science has already determined that the Earth is a sphere.
well, they're just hiding it from us. They're hiding it.
No, there's no evidence that they're hiding it from us. And the thing is, there is very clever people in the world. And somebody would have figured it out and actually shown people the truth if the Earth was flat. For the Earth to be flat, the amount of people that are being lied to is astronomical. But what's also astronomical is the amount of people that would be involved in that lie. The amount of people that would have to, the leaders of every government, most high government officials, every pilot, every boat captain, every teacher, every physicist, every particle physicist, every astronomer, everyone that owns a ham radio, they would all have to be in on this deception, because any of these people can quite easily tell that the Earth is a globe. Radio propagation alone proves that the Earth is a globe. Microwaves, right? The FE core used microwave transmitters a certain distance apart to try and prove the Earth was flat. Yet they couldn't get a connection because the Earth is a sphere.
So what about phone towers and
What about
stuff like
phone
that?
towers?
You wouldn't be able to receive a signal or anything on a
Yeah, and
spherical layer.
here's the thing. When I was in the middle of the ocean in the Navy, I couldn't
Yeah,
get a
supposed to
signal,
be
right?
flat.
I couldn't get a signal, right? But do you know what signal I could get? I could get a signal on the satellite phone on the bridge. Oh, and here's a good one. If it's all kind of land-based and everything, why do aeroplanes have their GPS receivers on the top?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's just receiving a different signal of
Yeah,
finding its location.
yeah, but the receivers are on the top of the plane, not the bottom. They're on the top of the plane, meaning that the signal is coming from above them, not below them.
You put it anywhere, just pick signal anyway.
No, you wouldn't be able to pick up the signal through the plane. They are literally pointing into
No,
space.
but with GPS you would.
No, they're literally pointing the GPS receivers into space. Why do people that install satellite dishes for satellite TV have to point every single satellite at the same position in the sky?
Well, if these satellites are supposed to be moving, how can they just point it at the sky and you get...
Because there's such a thing as a geosynchronous orbit. Very specific orbit where you have to be a certain distance away from the equator. There's literally, a tiny band where you can maintain a geosynchronous orbit, and that's where every single satellite television broadcasting thing is in this band around the equator, and every single satellite dish installer has to point at the same point in the sky, because geosynchronous orbits are matching the Earth's rotation.
And what's that? The INS supposedly? What
Sorry?
orbit's that supposed to be in?
What's
The
that?
ISS. What
Oh,
orbit's the ISS supposed to be in?
a very fast orbit. It has like 17 sunrises and sunsets a day. It's
So it's
not.
a completely...
Yeah, it's not a geosynchronous orbit at all. No. There's only very specific distance. Let me just get up the geosynchronous orbit. Right, geosynchronous orbit is a high Earth orbit that allows satellites to match Earth's rotation, located at exactly 22,236 miles above Earth's equator. And that's the only place where you can have a geosynchronous orbit, which is where all satellite, TV satellites are. Honestly, Fast Freddie, you need to do a lot more research and actually look at the science around things, rather than... You think you're a skeptic, but what you are is a denialist. Oh, that can't be true because they're all lying to you, is the answer you've given when I give conclusive evidence. So I honestly think that you need to do a lot more research. We've been going for a couple of hours, so I do want to call this to a close. But before we go, I would like to ask you the Flat Earth litmus questions.
All right.
So I've got a triangle of sides 1, 1, and 1. What are the internal angles?
Oh, see, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, it does, because again, this is... If you are going to debunk all of science, you need to have a basic understanding of things. And this is a very basic maths question that anyone should know.
Yeah, but we could get into questions. It's irrelevant, isn't it?
No, I'm testing your ability to actually discern reality.
But it doesn't matter.
So you don't know is the answer.
Well, I've seen the videos, so I do know. You're just trying to make things irrelevant.
No, what I'm doing is showing that you don't have a basic understanding of anything. and without a basic understanding of even basic maths, you are not in a position to try and debunk science.
I understand just different aspects of maths. So
Yeah, but something like the internal angles of an equilateral triangle are something that my 6-year-old daughter knows, you know? Probably 'cause I've told
yeah,
her.
no,
But,
but the point is, it doesn't matter.
okay. Right, well, honestly, I think I've gone through everything, and I don't think you're going to accept any of the evidence that I present. So we should probably call this to a close now. We've been going for a couple of hours. Would you just like to take a couple of minutes to any final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here after I read the super chats?
No, I'm good.
All right, well, thank you for joining. You're welcome to hang around while I read the super chats, but there's a good chance they're going to be quite mean towards you. It's up to you.
I'm sound. All right, I'll catch you in a bit.
All right, thank you, Freddie. That was interesting. Bye-bye. Well, guys, that was something, eh? I want to say thank you very much for all the super chats. I'm going to go through them now, then we're going to get out of here for today. Better charge for $2 New Zealand. Does he want the link sent by carrier pigeon? Yeah, it was. Communicating with flat earthers is very frustrating because they'll be emailing me and I'll email back instantly, and then they won't respond, and then they respond 2 hours later going, well, where's your response? Just look at your fucking email. Mr. Present 99 for €5 says 3 sentences and my brain hurts. Is it just me or is this guy a real idiot? I mean, for real, he even sounds the part. Unfortunately, I think he was. Yes. Rama Palander for 56. Ooh, the sex, lovely. Can't stay for long because I have to go to bed. Good night. Didn't have enough sleep last night and I can't wait to repay my sleep debt. Unfortunately, you can never repay your sleep debt. That's just something you can't do. You can't catch up on sleep, unfortunately. Another Mr. President for €5. OMG, end this debate. This guy is even more stupid than Nate Bitchmade Thompson, and that is a statement I don't do so easy. It gets worse every second. Agreed. Better charge for $5 New Zealand. Proof needed that you've been shown stuff not just off your head watching unicorns chasing beavers. You bring back bad trips. Yes. Better charge for $5 New Zealand. Is this really his proof? Damn, the pool is getting shallow. It's the thing, guys. To talk to flat earthers, I have to scrape the bottom of the barrel because that's where they are. Mr. President for €2. FTFE, one question. Why? Shits and giggles, I guess. Better charge for $2 New Zealand. I'm God, FTFE. Do you believe that, lol? Well, yes, obviously I believe you're God. Eldon S for 50 Nokias, thank you. At Freddie, if God created the universe, then who created God? Maybe you should ask him that in your next trip. Copernicus Thinker for $2. Let me guess, he has no flat earth working model. Working model? Andy Woods for £2. Litmus test Craig, please. He failed straight at the start. They don't even get it. Mr. President, 99 for €10. FTFE caught at night. This guy is mentally challenged and needs help or more drugs. Just give him a piece of paper with the words turn page for surprises on both sides and he'll be happy for hours. Love it. Mike Hill for $1.99. Hashtag nerd questions. Raven Zero for $2. When are the flat earths going to learn math? They think it means meth, but Tim Pryor for $5. Telling him he needs to keep up with flat earthers. They now admit things to disappear from bottom up and have some bullshit reason why that is. Copernicus Thinker for $2. That flatty makes dirt seem smart in comparison. Excuse me, I've got hiccups. Copernicus Thinker for $2. Freddie will be doing voiceovers in Walking Dead. And Copernicus Thinker for $2. Cookie is 98.6 times smarter than today's guest. Yes, you are, Cookie, aren't you? If you want to come and say hello to the stream, come here, my darling. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I just got lifted you up, haven't I, honey? Oh, put me thing back in. Say hello. Hiya. And Robert Williams for $2. Antenna anywhere. Steve Jobs, you're holding it wrong. Yeah, I remember that when the iPhone came out and they weren't getting GPS and stuff, and Steve Jobs was like, well, you're just holding the iPhone wrong. How are you supposed to hold it, for God's sakes? But tonight, guys, that is all. Before I go, there is a debate on MC Toon's channel at, I want to say 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where he will be having a discussion with JM Truth. All right, Cookie, down you go then, darling. Yeah, okay. Yeah, MC Toon will be having a discussion with JM Truth. If one of my mods wouldn't mind grabbing the link to that, I'm pretty sure it's already been created, and put it in the chat for people to see. But if you would like to see JM Truth have a discussion with MC Toon tonight, that's at 8 p.m. Let me just check. Eastern or Central, I don't know, time zones. Oh, there it is. I'll just put the link up myself. It says live in 2 hours. So here we go. Is the... Oh, Punchy just did it. Thank you. If you guys would please go and see MC Toon do his thing tonight. Mind of God, I don't even think Flat Earthers think that the Flat Earther won that debate. So you just need to shut up. But Mind of God, me and you are going to have a showdown soon. Yeah, so please go and check out MC Toon as he debates MC Toon tonight. And I'll be back in a day or so with a new video. And then I've got another debate lined up for Monday and possibly one on Sunday. So all good fun. Out of here tonight, guys. Thank you very much for the super chats. If you aren't able to super chat, it doesn't matter. Please just share my videos wherever you can. All the twatters, the Facebooks, the MySpaces, the Bevos, everywhere. Just share my videos, and it helps the channel more than you could ever know. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight the flat.